What is going on, y'all? This is John with Facemask Fantasy, bringing you new up-to-date fantasy content every day right here on this channel. So if you have not hit that subscribe button, please do. But without further ado, we're going to get into some fantasy talk right now. And if you've been listening to this channel, you know I've spent the last 6 months pumping up Adam Trautman. With Jared Cook, last year's TE1 for the Saints, leaving in free agency this past offseason for the Chargers, it's long been believed by the majority of the fantasy community that second-year tight end, Adam Trautman, was due to be the tight end one for the Saints. And many, including me right here on this channel, predicted a breakout year for Adam Trautman. Most people hadn't even heard of Juwan Johnson prior to the preseason, but it was Juwan Johnson who blew up the stat sheet for New Orleans with his 2-touchdown debut in week 1. He's a hot waiver wire ad. He has wide receiver and tight end eligibility on most platforms, looks to have the inside track to primary red zone weapon in this offense for Jameis Winston, and Jameis looked more efficient than just about any quarterback that I've seen in recent memory yesterday, and that was without Michael Thomas. With Marquez Callaway dealing with Jair Alexander, one of the best cornerbacks in the league, Jameis looked great. And Juwan Johnson was a huge part of that. Adam Trautman was not. So how do we approach this tight end room in fantasy? Is Trautman a drop? Is Juwan Johnson an ad? First, let's look at the snaps. Snap counts tend to lend some clarity to situations like this. Adam Trautman was in on 80% of the offensive team snaps. Juwan Johnson was in on 20. Due to math, Trautman was used when they weren't in scoring position. Juwan Johnson was used when they were in scoring position. But Juwan wasn't used at all anywhere else. And Trautman was used more than all but 5 tight ends based on team snap percentage. You don't often talk about cannibalizing usage when you're talking about tight ends, as it's usually a term reserved for running backs. But I think cannibalizing usage is what we're talking about here. And I think personally, chase the touchdowns. You chase the scoring. He could get you nothing next week, but with Callaway being the target of the opposing team's cornerback 1, with Michael Thomas out, with Traquan Smith on IR, there are targets to go around in this offense, and he's the biggest target they have in the pass game. Not only did Juwan Johnson show out in Sunday's game against Green Bay, it was Johnson who led the Saints in receiving in the preseason opener when he had 2 catches for 71 yards while playing a handful of snaps with the first team offense. It was Johnson who was featured on third down passing plays with Taysom Hill's unit all throughout the preseason. Johnson is a former college wideout who converted to tight end this summer and has been one of the stars of Saints camp. Have we heard this narrative before, Darren Waller? Yeah, absolutely. But you have to remember, we also heard the same exact narrative with a guy like Hakeem Butler. There's a large range of outcomes for former college wideouts who converted to tight end. But the Saints originally signed Juwan Johnson out of Oregon in 2020. He's 6'4", 230 pounds, so like I said earlier, he's one of the biggest targets in the receiving game for the Saints. Now, he began his college career at Penn State, only totaling 81 catches for 1,123 yards and 2 touchdowns in 3 years at Penn State before transferring to Oregon and working with 2020's number 6th overall pick, Justin Herbert, in his final collegiate season. It only amounted to 29 receptions for 467 yards and 4 receiving, but Johnson showed enough as a big-bodied possession wideout to get picked up by the Saints as an undrafted free agent rookie ahead of the 2020 season. He ended up making the practice squad as a receiver, and he ended up seeing real playing time in the NFL last year due to injuries at the position in New Orleans. According to Pro Football Focus, Johnson's usage was somewhat tight end-like. While he lined up out wide 147 times, he played more run blocking snaps with 99 than routes run with 83. And he had a surprising run blocking grade of 88.7 and only committed 1 penalty. He's been a great blocker since college. It translated to the NFL, enough that the team wanted him on the field at a different position with less competition so they could utilize him as a more movable chess piece. And again, if you've been listening to this channel, you've heard me talk about Jameis Winston. I believed all offseason that Jameis Winston was the best quarterback in this room and thus was going to start for the 2021 season. When at the peak of his powers, Jameis Winston has shown that he can sustain multiple fantasy-relevant pass catchers throughout his career year in, year out. In 2017, Mike Evans was the wide receiver 18, Deshaun Jackson was the wide receiver 33, Cameron Brate was the tight end 9, and O.J. Howard was the tight end 17. In 2018, Mike Evans was the wide receiver 10, Chris Godwin was the wide receiver 34, O.J. Howard was the tight end 11, and Cameron Brate was the tight end 19. In 2019, when Jameis Winston was the quarterback 3, even though he threw for like 30 interceptions, Mike Evans was the wide receiver 8, Chris Godwin was the wide receiver 2, Cameron Brate was the tight tight end 27, and OJ Howard was the tight end 28. So in 2017, a top 10 tight end, a top 20 tight end, a top 20 wide receiver, and a top 40 wide receiver. In 2017, a top 10 wide receiver, a top 40 wide receiver, and 2 top 20 tight ends. In 2019, 2 top 10 wide receivers and 2 top 30 tight ends. But in Tampa Bay, that was when he had 2 elite wide receiver options all 3 seasons. Through 1 week of football, I think it's safe to say that Marquez Callaway, while exciting in the preseason, is not Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. With Traquan Smith out on IR and just not very good for some reason, he just hasn't panned out thus far in the league. Marquez Callaway's a question mark. Deontay Harris scored a long bomb yesterday, but nobody's expecting Deontay Harris to be even a wide receiver 3 steadily throughout the whole season. This pass catching group needs somebody to step up, and it could be Juwan Johnson with his dual threat eligibility. I think he's a great bet to continue to get red zone looks as long as Michael Thomas is out. When Michael Thomas is back, you may want to sell high, but until that happens, I think Juwan Johnson is fantasy relevant from at least the tight end position that is notoriously a wasteland outside of the top tier options, and Adam Trautman should get enough work in the middle of the field to still warrant fantasy consideration. He's just not going to be getting the red zone looks that most tight ends rely on for fantasy production. He's one of the most well-rounded tight ends in the league, but until Michael Thomas comes back, Adam Trautman might be blocking more than we expected him to coming into the season. So we will keep an eye on this situation for you. We'll keep you appraised of the situation. If anything changes, I think Juwan Johnson should be picked up in all leagues. So what do y'all think about this tight end situation in New Orleans? You think Juwan Johnson is the guy to own here? Or do you think it's going to swing back Adam Trautman's way as soon as week 2 and for the foreseeable future? Put your thoughts in the comment section below. My name is John with Facemask Fantasy. We bring you new fantasy content every day right here on this channel. So if you have not subscribed already, please hit that button, y'all. Thank you for listening and have a great day.